Night after night, the scene grew more baffling at Willow Creek Ranch. Feed bags mysteriously appeared in perfect rows outside each stall, water troughs were meticulously filled, and injured horses somehow received fresh hay compresses before dawn. Bewildered and increasingly unnerved, the stable manager knew this was far beyond any ordinary occurrence. When she finally installed security cameras, what they revealed would leave not just her, but the entire equestrian world absolutely speechless. The soft glow of dawn was just beginning to paint the horizon when Sarah Mitchell made her way down the familiar gravel path toward the main stable at Willow Creek Ranch. The crisp autumn air nipped at her cheeks as she pulled her weathered denim jacket closer, her boots crunching against the frost-covered ground. 20 years of managing horse stables had taught her to expect the unexpected, but nothing could have prepared her for what had been happening over the past few weeks. As she approached the expansive wooden structure, its weathered beams still proud against the early morning sky, she noticed something that made her stop in her tracks. There, perfectly aligned outside each stall door, sat individual feed bags, each one measured and positioned with almost surgical precision. The water troughs, which she distinctly remembered being half empty the night before, now brimmed with fresh, clean water, their surfaces still rippling slightly in the morning breeze. "This isn't possible," Sarah muttered, her breath visible in the cold morning air. Her eyes darted from one feed bag to the next, counting silently. 12 bags, one for each horse, each positioned exactly 2 feet from its respective stall door. This wasn't the work of wind or wildlife. This was deliberate, methodical, and absolutely inexplicable. Moving closer, she noticed something even more peculiar. Outside Midnight Star's stall, where the elderly stallion had been nursing a tender leg, lay a perfectly crafted hay compress, the kind she herself would make for injured horses. The compress was still damp, suggesting it had been applied recently, and positioned precisely where the horse's injury would be if he were lying down. Sarah ran her fingers through her graying hair, her mind racing to make sense of what she was seeing. The ranch, situated in the rolling hills of Montana, was miles from the nearest neighbor. The security gates had been locked all night. She'd checked them herself before leaving. Yet here was evidence of something, or someone, tending to the horses with a level of care and expertise that rivaled her own. Inside the stable, the scene became even more puzzling. The usual morning chaos she'd come to expect was replaced by an almost eerily pristine environment. The feed bins had been organized by grain type, the tools hung with perfect spacing on their hooks, and even the walking paths between stalls had been swept clean. The horses themselves seemed unusually calm, almost expectant, as if they knew something she didn't. Thundercloud, the typically spirited young mare in the first stall, watched Sarah with what seemed like knowing eyes. Her black coat gleamed as if recently brushed, and her mane appeared to have been carefully detangled, a task that usually required Sarah's undivided attention for at least an hour. "Did you see who did this, girl?" Sarah whispered, reaching out to stroke Thundercloud's nose. The horse nickered softly, pressing against her hand with unusual gentleness. In the next stall, Aurora, a temperamental palomino who typically demanded attention, stood quietly, her stall equally immaculate. The sound of approaching footsteps made Sarah turn. Jack Reynolds, her young assistant, came jogging up, his face flushed with excitement or concern. She couldn't quite tell which. "Sarah, you need to see this," he called out, waving his phone. "I got here early and checked the security footage from the parking area, and you won't believe what I found. There's no car tracks, no footprints in the frost, nothing. It's like whoever did this appeared out of thin air." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the morning cold. She'd worked with horses all her life, seen every kind of unusual behavior and inexplicable event that came with ranch life. But this was different. This was organized, purposeful, and completely impossible to explain. "We need to get to the bottom of this," she declared, her voice firm. despite her internal uncertainty. Tonight, we're setting up cameras inside the stable. Every angle, every corner. Whatever's happening here, we're going to find out. As if in response, a soft chorus of whinnies echoed through the stable, the horses seemingly reacting to her words. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they knew something she didn't, that behind their gentle eyes lay the answer to this extraordinary mystery. Whatever was happening at Willow Creek Ranch during those quiet night hours, she was determined to uncover the truth, unaware that what she would discover would challenge everything she thought she knew about these magnificent creatures. As the days passed at Willow Creek Ranch, the mysterious nighttime activities only grew more elaborate and puzzling. Sarah found herself arriving earlier each morning, her curiosity and confusion mounting with each new discovery. The precision and care shown in these nightly ministrations went beyond anything she had experienced in her 2 decades of horse care. One particularly frosty morning, Sarah arrived to find not just the usual perfectly arranged feed bags and filled water troughs, but something that made her question her own sanity. The riding equipment in the tack room, which she'd left in its usual organized chaos the night before, had been completely transformed. Every saddle gleamed as if freshly oiled, each piece of tack hung in perfect alignment, arranged by size and type. The leather bridles shone with a luster that spoke of careful, loving attention. "This is getting out of hand," Sarah muttered, running her finger along a freshly polished stirrup. The metal surface reflected her bewildered expression perfectly. Even the most dedicated stable hand couldn't achieve this level of thoroughness in a single night. The air in the tack room carried the distinct scent of leather conditioner, her preferred brand, but she knew she'd locked the supply cabinet herself the previous evening. Jack appeared in the doorway, his usual energetic demeanor subdued by confusion. "It happened again, didn't it?" he asked, though the answer was obvious. "I checked the security gates twice last night before leaving. Everything was locked tight, and the alarm system was armed. No one could have gotten in without triggering it." Sarah nodded slowly, her mind racing through possible explanations. "What about the cameras in the parking area? Anything unusual?" "That's the strangest part," Jack replied, pulling out his phone to show her the footage. "Nothing. Not a single car, not a single person. Just some moths flying around the security lights. It's like—" He hesitated, almost embarrassed, to continue. "Like whatever's doing this isn't coming through the gates at all." Thundercloud's distinctive whinny drew their attention back to the main stable. Sarah and Jack exchanged glances before heading to investigate. The young mare had been recovering from a minor hoof infection, requiring daily treatment with a hay special solution. As they approached her stall, Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. The horse's affected hoof had been cleaned and treated with expert precision. The special medicated wrap she used was applied perfectly, better than she could have done herself. Next to the stall, the treatment log had been updated in unfamiliar, elegantly flowing handwriting, documenting the exact time and method of care. "This isn't just someone sneaking in to feed the horses," Sarah said, examining Thundercloud's hoof. "This is someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Someone with years of experience." She paused, considering the implications. But why? Why sneak in at night? Why not just come forward? The mystery deepened as they continued their morning inspection. In Aurora's stall, they found her typically tangled mane braided into a complex pattern that would have taken hours to complete. The Palomino seemed unusually serene, as if she'd enjoyed a spa treatment rather than someone sneaking into her stall in the dark. Midnight Star, the elderly stallion, appeared to be moving with more ease than he had in weeks. His tender leg had been expertly wrapped, and a fresh hay compress lay nearby, still carrying the scent of the therapeutic herbs Sarah used for inflammation. "Check this out," Jack called from the feed room. Sarah joined him to find the week's feeding charts updated with detailed notes about each horse's appetite and behavior. The handwriting matched the elegant script in Thundercloud's treatment log. Whoever's doing this isn't just caring for the horses, they're monitoring them, like a guardian angel or something. Sarah had to admit, despite the unsettling nature of these mysterious visits, she couldn't deny that the horses were thriving. Their coats gleamed with health, their eyes were bright and alert, and even the more challenging animals seemed calmer, more balanced. "Have you noticed how none of the horses seem spooked?" Jack observed, voicing something that had been nagging at Sarah's mind. "It's like they know whoever's doing this, like they're completely comfortable with them being here." Sarah remembered her years of experience with horses, how they could sense danger or ill intent, how they typically reacted to strangers in their space, especially at night. Yet every morning they found the horses calm and content, as if they'd spent the night in the company of a trusted friend. The feed bags outside caught her attention again. The precision of their placement wasn't just about neatness. Each bag was positioned exactly where each horse could reach it comfortably, based on their height and stall configuration. This kind of detailed understanding of each animal's needs and preferences spoke of intimate knowledge and deep care. "We need to set up more cameras," Sarah decided, her voice firm with determination. "Not just in the stable, but everywhere. The tack room, the feed room, the treatment areas. Whoever's doing this has to be coming from somewhere, and we're going to find out how." As she spoke, a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of fresh hay through the stable. The horses moved quietly in their stalls, their peaceful demeanor, a stark contrast to the growing tension Sarah felt. Something extraordinary was happening at Willow Creek Ranch, something that defied logical explanation, and as the sun climbed higher in the morning sky, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of discovering something that would change everything they thought they knew about these magnificent animals. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Willow Creek Ranch as Sarah Mitchell sat in the main office with Marcus Bennett, the ranch owner, and his daughter Emma. The leather chairs creaked softly as Sarah leaned forward, spreading out the morning's photographs across the solid oak desk. Each image told part of the increasingly bizarre story that had been unfolding over the past weeks. "I know how this sounds," Sarah began, her voice steady despite her uncertainty. "But something extraordinary is happening here, and we need to figure out what it is." She pointed to a photo of the meticulously arranged feed bags, then to another, showing the expertly wrapped leg of Midnight Star. Marcus Bennett, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and weathered features that spoke of decades under the Montana sun, studied the images carefully. Unlike many ranch owners who viewed their properties as mere investments, Marcus had a deep connection to Willow Creek and every animal on it. His family had run the ranch for 3 generations, and he'd grown up among these very stables. "And you're certain no one could have accessed the property?" he asked, his deep voice thoughtful. "The security system hasn't shown any breaches?" Emma, her long dark hair pulled back in a practical braid, leaned in to examine the treatment log with its mysterious, elegant handwriting. At 25, she'd recently returned from veterinary school and had taken on the role of the ranch's primary veterinarian. "This level of care," she mused, tracing the detailed notes with her finger. "Whoever's doing this knows exactly what they're doing. The treatment protocols are perfect, better than perfect, actually. They're innovative." Jack, who had been quietly leaning against the office doorframe, stepped forward. "I've checked every camera feed, every gate log, every possible entry point. Nothing. It's like our mystery caretaker is a ghost." "Or an angel," Emma added softly, thinking of how the horses had been thriving under the mysterious nighttime care. She'd noticed subtle improvements in their health that went beyond regular maintenance, preventive care she hadn't even considered implementing herself. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the paddocks where several horses grazed peacefully in the afternoon sun. "My grandfather used to tell stories," he began, his voice taking on a distant quality. "Tales of spirit horses and guardian beings that watched over ranch lands. I always thought they were just that, stories." He turned back to face the I group. But what's happening here? It's making me wonder if there wasn't some truth to those old legends. Sarah shifted in her chair, torn between her practical nature and the undeniable evidence of something inexplicable. Whatever, or whoever is doing this, they're not causing any harm. In fact, they're helping. But we need to understand what's happening here. The horses are in our care, and we're responsible for their safety. I agree, Emma said, standing up to join her father at the window. We need to document this properly. If there's something extraordinary happening here, we should try to understand it, not just for our sake, but for what it might mean for horse care in general. Marcus nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. What do you propose, Sarah? Sarah pulled out a tablet and opened a detailed diagram of the stable complex. I want to set up a comprehensive surveillance system. High-definition cameras with night vision capabilities in every section of the stable. Motion sensors that can detect even the slightest movement. Environmental monitors to track any changes in temperature or air pressure. I can help with that, Jack offered. I know someone who specializes in this kind of equipment. They can have it installed by tomorrow night. Emma bent over the diagram, pointing to several locations. We should also set up cameras here, here, and here, she indicated. These are the spots where the most unusual care has been happening. And maybe some in the paddocks too. The horses' behavior during the day might give us clues about what's happening at night. What about the horses themselves? Marcus asked. How are they responding to all this? Sarah shook her head in wonderment. That's one of the most puzzling parts. They're completely calm, happy even. Midnight Star's leg is healing faster than any similar injury I've seen in 20 years of horse care. Thundercloud's hoof infection is almost completely cleared up. It's like they know something we don't. Then we do this right, Marcus decided, his voice firm. We set up the surveillance system, but we keep this quiet. No staff outside this room needs to know what we're looking for. The last thing we need is rumors spreading or people trying to interfere with whatever's happening here. The group spent the next hour detailing their plan, marking camera locations, and discussing monitoring schedules. They decided to work in shifts, with each person taking turns monitoring the feeds throughout the night. Emma volunteered to document any changes in the horse's health and behavior, while Jack would handle the technical aspects of the surveillance system. As the meeting drew to a close, the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, casting an almost magical glow over the ranch. Sarah stood at the office window, watching as the horses began their evening routines. Thundercloud pranced playfully in her paddock, her movements showing no sign of her recent hoof troubles. Midnight Star stood regally by the fence, his wrapped leg barely seeming to bother him. Tomorrow night, Sarah said softly, more to herself than the others. Tomorrow night we'll finally know what's really happening here. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover something that would change not just Willow Creek Ranch, but their entire understanding of these magnificent creatures they thought they knew so well. The following evening, Willow Creek Ranch hummed with nervous energy as the newly installed surveillance system came online. In the converted office space they now called the monitoring room, screens lined the walls, each displaying crystal-clear feeds from different areas of the stable complex. Sarah, Jack, Emma, and Marcus gathered around the central desk, the blue glow of the monitors casting shadows on their expectant faces. All cameras are functioning perfectly, Jack announced, his fingers dancing across the keyboard as he checked each feed. We've got complete coverage. Stables, tack room, feed storage, paddocks, and all approach paths. Nothing's getting in or out without us seeing it. Emma leaned forward, studying the thermal imaging display. The environmental sensors are all green too. They'll pick up any significant changes in temperature or air pressure. She'd insisted on this additional monitoring, her scientific mind seeking to document every possible variable. Now we wait, Marcus said quietly, settling into one of the office chairs. The digital clock on the main screen read 9:45 p.m. The stable's nightlights cast a soft glow across the yard, creating pools of gentle illumination amid the growing darkness. Hours ticked by slowly. They watched as the horses settled into their normal nighttime routines. Midnight Star dozed in his usual corner, his wrapped leg tucked comfortably beneath him. Thundercloud paced a bit before finally settling down, her newly healed hoof no longer causing her any discomfort. As midnight approached, Sarah found herself fighting to keep her eyes open. The events of the past few days had left her exhausted, but curiosity kept her alert. Jack had started his third cup of coffee, while Emma meticulously logged every minor movement or sound picked up by their sophisticated monitoring system. "Wait." Marcus suddenly sat up straighter, pointing to one of the screens. "Did you see that?" The others leaned in, focusing on the feed from camera 3, which covered the main stable aisle. A subtle shimmer had appeared in the air, like heat waves rising from summer-baked asphalt. The environmental sensors began registering slight fluctuations in temperature and pressure. "The horses," Emma whispered, gesturing to another screen. "Look at how they're reacting." Instead of showing fear or anxiety at the strange occurrence, every horse in the stable had perked up, their ears forward, their attention focused on something the cameras couldn't quite capture. Thundercloud let out a soft nicker of greeting, as if welcoming an old friend. The shimmer in the air grew more pronounced, and the image on camera 3 began to waver slightly. Jack quickly adjusted the settings, ensuring they wouldn't lose the feed at this crucial moment. "I've never seen anything like this," he muttered, his technical expertise challenged by what he was witnessing. Then, at exactly midnight, something extraordinary happened. The shimmer coalesced into a form that left them all speechless. There, standing in the stable aisle, was a horse, but unlike any horse they'd ever seen. Its coat seemed to be made of starlight, shifting and gleaming with an inner luminescence that the night vision cameras struggled to process. Its mane flowed like liquid silver, moving in a breeze that didn't exist. "Oh my God," Sarah breathed, her hands gripping the edge of the desk. The mysterious horse moved with impossible grace, its hooves making no sound on the concrete floor. As they watched, transfixed, it approached Thundercloud's stall. The spectral horse's form seemed to shift and change, becoming more solid as it reached through the stall bars with what appeared to be a ghostly approximation of human hands. With incredible gentleness and skill, it began checking Thundercloud's previously injured hoof. "It's healing her," Emma managed to say, her veterinary training warring with what her eyes were telling her. "Look at the precision of those movements. It knows exactly what it's doing." The mysterious being moved from stall to stall, transforming fluidly between equine and humanoid forms as needed for different tasks. It measured feed with careful attention, filled water troughs without spilling a drop, and applied medical treatments with expert care. Every action was performed with a grace and efficiency that seemed almost supernatural. When it reached midnight, Star's stall, the elderly stallion greeted it like an old friend, pressing his nose against its shimmering form. The being spent extra time with him, carefully unwrapping his leg, applying what appeared to be some kind of ethereal compress, and rewrapping it with perfect precision. "The legends," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "My grandfather's stories about spirit horses, about guardians who watched over the ranch lands. They weren't just stories." Sarah couldn't take her eyes off the screens. "All this time," she said softly. "We thought we were the ones taking care of them. But there's been someone, something, else watching over them too." The being continued its rounds, and they observed in amazed silence as it performed all the mysterious tasks that had puzzled them for weeks. The elegant handwriting in the treatment logs, the perfectly arranged tack room, the expertly wrapped injuries. Everything made sense now, even if that sense defied their understanding of reality. As they watched, the horses seemed to communicate with the spirit in their own way. Soft nickering, gentle movements, understanding glances. It was clear this wasn't just a random occurrence. This was a long-established relationship between the mysterious guardian and the horses in its care. "We need to document everything," Emma said, her scientific mind engaging despite her awe. "Every detail, every interaction. This could change everything we think we know about horses, about their connection to the spiritual world." Jack, who had been quietly ensuring all cameras were recording properly, nodded in agreement. "No one would believe this without proof, and even with proof." He trailed off, watching as the spirit being expertly braided Aurora's mane with those ethereal hands. The night deepened, and they continued to watch, mesmerized by the extraordinary scene unfolding before them. None of them could have predicted this explanation for the mysterious happenings at Willow Creek Ranch, yet somehow, seeing it with their own eyes, it felt right. It felt true. The morning after their extraordinary discovery, the small group at Willow Creek Ranch gathered in the monitoring room, their eyes tired from a sleepless night but bright with excitement. The footage they'd captured played on loop across the screens, each angle showing different aspects of their mystical visitors' activities. The reality of what they'd witnessed was still sinking in. "I've watched it 20 times now," Emma said, her voice filled with wonder as she reviewed her detailed notes. The way it transitions between forms, how it knows exactly what each horse needs. It's beyond anything I learned in veterinary school. She paused the footage on a clear shot of the spirit horse's luminescent form. "Look at how the horses respond to it. There's no fear, no hesitation. It's like they've always known it was there." Sarah, who had finally managed to tear herself away from the monitors, paced the room restlessly. "The question is, what do we do with this? Who would even believe us?" She stopped at the window, watching the horses grazing peacefully in the morning sun, looking as ordinary as ever. Jack had been busy organizing and backing up the footage, ensuring every second was preserved. "The video quality is incredible," he commented, enhancing a particularly clear sequence. "You can see every detail of its movements, the way it seems to glow from within. This isn't something that could be faked." Marcus sat quietly in his chair, lost in thought. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of generations. "My grandfather always said that Willow Creek was special, that it was protected. When I was a boy, I used to think he was just trying to make the ranch seem magical." He smiled softly. "Turns out, he was just telling the truth." Emma, who had been scrolling through her phone, suddenly sat up straighter. "Dad, I think we should share this. Not everything, but something. People need to see this. It could change how we think about horses, about their connection to the spiritual world." "I agree," Jack chimed in, already working on editing a short clip. "We could start with just a glimpse, something that shows enough to be incredible, but doesn't reveal everything. Let people draw their own conclusions." After careful consideration, they selected a brief segment of footage, just enough to show the spirit horse in its most ethereal form, tenderly caring for Midnight Star. Jack added soft background music and a simple caption, "Mysterious guardian spirit caught on camera." At Willow Creek Ranch. With a collective deep breath, they posted the clip to the ranch's social media accounts. None of them was prepared for what happened next. Within hours, the video exploded across the internet. What started as a few hundred views quickly multiplied into thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Comments and shares flooded in from around the world, each notification sound marking another person discovering their extraordinary footage. "This is incredible! I've never seen anything like it! Could this be real? My grandmother used to tell stories about spirit horses." The ranch's phone began ringing non-stop. Email notifications pinged constantly. Local news stations were the first to reach out, followed quickly by national networks. Social media influencers and paranormal investigators flooded their message inbox with requests to visit the ranch. "Look at this," Emma called out, showing them her tablet. "Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the leading expert in equine behavior from the University of Colorado, wants to come study our footage. She says it could be groundbreaking evidence of supernatural equine intelligence. Sarah watched as the view count continued to climb. "We need to be careful," she cautioned. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about protecting the horses and their guardian." She glanced at the stable through the window, where life continued as normal, the horses unaware of their growing fame. By late afternoon, cars had begun appearing at the ranch gates. Amateur photographers with long-lens cameras tried to catch glimpses of the stable, hoping to capture their own evidence of the supernatural phenomenon. Local residents drove by slowly, their phones held up to record anything unusual. Marcus called an emergency meeting with the ranch staff, gathering them in the main office. "I know you've all probably seen the video by now," he began, addressing the wide-eyed group. "What's happening here is extraordinary, and it's going to bring a lot of attention to Willow Creek. But our priority hasn't changed. The welfare of our horses comes first." They established new protocols for handling the sudden influx of interest. Emma would coordinate with scientific researchers who wanted to study the phenomenon. Jack would manage media requests and continue monitoring the nightly footage. Sarah would ensure the horses' routines remained undisturbed, protecting their peace amid the growing chaos. As the sun began to set on that transformative day, Sarah stood in the stable, watching the horses settle in for the night. Thundercloud nickered softly from her stall, seeming to sense Sarah's thoughts. "Don't worry," she whispered to the horses. "We'll protect your secret, even while we share it with the world." The footage continued to spread, capturing imaginations and challenging beliefs across the globe. Willow Creek Ranch had become the center of a phenomenon that would forever change how people viewed the mysterious bond between horses and the spiritual realm. And somewhere, just beyond the veil of ordinary reality, their luminescent guardian prepared for another night of silent, sacred care. Within days, Willow Creek Ranch transformed from a peaceful horse sanctuary into something resembling a spiritual pilgrimage site. Cars lined the country road leading to the ranch gates, their occupants hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious phenomenon that had captured the world's imagination. The viral video, now with millions of views, had sparked a global conversation about the relationship between the physical and spiritual worlds. Sarah stood at the office window, watching as another TV news van navigated the gravel driveway. Dark circles under her eyes testified to nights spent balancing her regular duties with managing the growing circus their quiet ranch had become. 3 more documentary crews called this morning, she informed Marcus, who sat at his desk reviewing the latest batch of interview requests. "And National Geographic wants to do a special feature." "And what about our nightly visitor?" Marcus asked quietly, though they were alone in the office. "Any changes in its behavior since all this attention started?" Sarah shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "That's the most remarkable thing. It still comes every night, carrying out its duties as if nothing has changed. If anything, it seems even more protective." She thought back to the previous night's footage, where the spirit horse had positioned itself between the stables and the direction of the gathered crowds, its luminescent form seeming to create a barrier of ethereal light. Emma burst into the office, her tablet clutched in her hand. "You need to see this," she announced, turning the screen toward them. "Dr. Rodriguez's preliminary analysis of our footage just went live on the university's research portal. She's comparing it to similar phenomena reported throughout history. Ancient Celtic legends, Native American stories, even some accounts from medieval European monasteries that kept horses." The scientific community's interest had been unexpected but welcome. Unlike the sensation-seeking media, researchers like Dr. Rodriguez approached the phenomenon with respectful curiosity, seeking to understand rather than exploit. Their presence helped legitimate what was happening at Willow Creek, providing a counterbalance to the inevitable skeptics and critics. Jack appeared in the doorway, looking harried. "We've got another situation at the gates. Some self-proclaimed ghost hunters." are trying to set up their equipment along the fence line. They've got all these devices they claim can detect spiritual energy. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. Have they crossed onto our property? Not yet, but they're getting pretty aggressive about it. They're claiming it's their right to investigate since we made the footage public. I'll handle it, Sarah volunteered, already reaching for her jacket. She'd become surprisingly adept at dealing with overzealous visitors, finding a balance between firmness and diplomacy. As she headed toward the gates, she could hear the excited chatter of the ghost hunting team, their equipment beeping and whirring in the morning air. "Folks," she called out as she approached, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent decades managing both horses and people. "I understand your interest, but this is private property. More importantly, this is a working ranch with living creatures who need peace and routine." The lead investigator, a man in his 30s wearing a vest covered in paranormal research logos, stepped forward. "You don't understand. This could be the most significant spiritual evidence ever captured. We have specialized equipment that could prove the authenticity of your footage." Sarah met his eager gaze steadily. "Our footage has already been authenticated by multiple independent experts. What we have here isn't a ghost story or a scientific curiosity. It's a sacred trust. These horses and their guardian deserve our respect, not our interference." As if in response to her words, Thundercloud appeared at the nearby paddock fence, watching the scene with intelligent eyes. The ghost hunter's equipment suddenly erupted in a cacophony of beeps and alarms, their meters spiking dramatically. Sarah couldn't help but smile, knowing that the mare's timing was probably not coincidental. Back at the stable, Emma was conducting her daily health checks on the horses, meticulously documenting their continuing exceptional condition. "It's extraordinary," she told a small group of approved veterinary researchers who had been permitted to observe. "Their recovery rates from injuries are off the charts. Their overall health markers are better than anything I've seen in my studies." The researchers scribbled notes furiously as Emma demonstrated how Midnight Star's previously injured leg had healed weeks ahead of schedule. The elderly stallion stood patiently, seeming to understand the importance of what they were documenting. As the day progressed, Sarah and the team continued their delicate balancing act. They had developed a system for managing the ranch's new reality. Approved researchers were allowed controlled access during specific hours, media interviews were strictly limited and supervised, and a secure perimeter was maintained to ensure the horses' routines remained undisturbed. "We're trending again," Jack announced during their afternoon meeting, showing them the latest social media statistics. "Someone compiled all the historical references to spirit horses that Dr. Rodriguez mentioned in her paper. People are sharing similar stories from all over the world." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's part of why this is happening now. The world needs reminding that there's more to these animals than what we can see and measure. That there's still magic and mystery in the ordinary places we think we understand." As evening approached, Sarah walked the stable aisle, checking on each horse one last time before night fell. The atmosphere was different now, charged with an awareness of something greater than themselves. The horses seemed to watch her, with knowing eyes, as if they had always been aware of their guardian and were simply waiting for the humans to catch up. Thundercloud nickered softly as Sarah passed her stall, and for a moment, Sarah thought she saw a familiar shimmer in the air. "We're trying our best," she whispered, both to the horse and to whatever might be listening. "To protect this place, to honor what's happening here." The sun set over Willow Creek Ranch, painting the sky in brilliant hues of purple and gold. As the day's visitors departed and quiet descended, Sarah knew their guardian would soon begin its nightly rounds. Despite the chaos and attention, despite the crowds and cameras, the real miracle continued undisturbed, a sacred dance between the physical and spiritual, between the horses they thought they knew and the mysterious forces that had always watched over them. As autumn deepened at Willow Creek Ranch, a subtle shift in the atmosphere began to emerge. Among the daily crowds of well-meaning visitors and legitimate researchers, Sarah started noticing faces that seemed out of place. People who watched too intently, who asked questions that went beyond mere curiosity. It began one crisp morning when she spotted 3 men in expensive suits examining the property's perimeter with calculating eyes. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Sarah called out, approaching them with measured steps. The horses in the nearby paddock had grown unusually quiet, their usual playful behavior replaced by watchful stillness. Thundercloud, typically the first to greet visitors, had retreated to the far corner of her enclosure. The tallest of the men turned, offering a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Dr. James Morton," he introduced himself, extending a business card. "I represent the Institute for Paranormal Research and Development. We're very interested in what's happening here at Willow Creek." Sarah accepted the card but didn't pocket it. "We're already working with several research institutions," she replied carefully. "Dr. Rodriguez from the University of Colorado is leading the official study." "Ah, yes, Elena's work," Morton said dismissively. "But we're interested in something more. Practical. Our institute specializes in containing and studying supernatural phenomena. We have facilities designed specifically for this kind of research." A chill ran down Sarah's spine at the word containing. Behind her, she heard Thundercloud stamp her hoof nervously. "I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting, Dr. Morton." The second man stepped forward, his sharp features set in an expression of barely concealed eagerness. "What my colleague means is that we're prepared to make a very generous offer to relocate some of your horses, particularly those that have shown the strongest connection to the entity, to our research facility. State-of-the-art security, controlled conditions, unlimited funding for study." "The horses aren't for sale," Sarah stated firmly, "and they're certainly not research specimens. This is their home." The third man, who had been quietly taking notes on a tablet, looked up. "Ms. Mitchell, surely you understand the significance of what you've discovered here. This could revolutionize our understanding of supernatural phenomena. The potential applications are endless." "Applications?" Sarah repeated, not liking the implications of that word. "Think about it," Morton pressed. "If we could understand how this spirit enhances the horse's healing, how it communicates with them, the military applications alone would be worth millions, and that's just the beginning." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. "I think you gentlemen should leave. Now." As if in response to her words, a cool breeze swept through the ranch, causing the horses to stamp and snort. For a moment, Sarah thought she saw a familiar shimmer in the air between her and the visitors. Morton's eyes narrowed, tracking the unusual atmospheric disturbance. "Fascinating," he murmured, reaching for what looked like a measuring device in his pocket. "The energy readings here are off the charts." "The property is closed to visitors for the day," Sarah insisted, stepping deliberately between Morton and his view of the stables. "Our security team will escort you out." As Jack appeared with 2 of the ranch's newly hired security guards, Morton handed Sarah a business card. "Think about our offer, Ms. Mitchell. We'll be in touch." His tone carried an undertone that set Sarah's nerves on edge. Once the men were gone, Sarah rushed to find Marcus and Emma in the monitoring room. As she recounted the conversation, Emma's face grew increasingly concerned. "I've heard of these people," Emma said, quickly typing on her laptop. "The Institute for Paranormal Research and Development. They're a private organization with some pretty controversial methods. There are rumors about experiments, about phenomena that disappeared after they got involved." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression grave. "They won't stop with one visit. People like that, when they want something. They'll try to take it," Sarah finished. She looked at the monitors showing the peaceful scene in the stables, where their ethereal guardian had so faithfully watched over its charges. "We need to be prepared." Jack, who had joined them after dealing with the visitors, pulled up the security footage of the men's inspection of the property. "They were mapping out our security systems," he pointed out. "Camera locations, patrol, patterns, entry points. They're planning something." Then we'll plan better, Sarah declared. I won't let them turn this miracle into some kind of military experiment. Throughout the day, subtle signs of unease rippled through the ranch. The horses remained agitated, gathering in tight groups rather than spreading out to graze. That evening, as Sarah made her final rounds, she noticed something unusual. The spirit horse appeared earlier than its usual midnight arrival, its luminescent form more visible than ever as it moved protectively between the stables and the perimeter, where Morton and his colleagues had been. We'll protect them, Sarah promised softly, both to the horses and their guardian. Whatever it takes. But as she walked back to the monitoring room, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The men's words echoed in her mind, containing applications, specimens. They had recognized the power present at Willow Creek Ranch, but they had missed its true nature. This wasn't something to be contained or controlled. It was a sacred trust, a bridge between worlds that needed to be protected, not exploited. As night fell, Sarah gathered the team for an emergency meeting. They needed to prepare for whatever Morton and his institute might be planning. The peaceful sanctuary they had maintained was under threat, and they would need every resource, every ally, and perhaps even some supernatural assistance to keep their horses and their mysterious guardian safe from those who would try to capture and control what they couldn't understand. The next few days at Willow Creek Ranch passed in a blur of activity as Sarah and the team worked tirelessly to fortify their sanctuary. The peaceful atmosphere had been replaced by a sense of urgent preparation, though they tried to maintain a calm exterior for the sake of the horses and the continuing stream of legitimate visitors. Sarah stood in the monitoring room with Jack, reviewing the upgraded security system's capabilities. The wall of screens showed every angle of the property in crystal clear detail, with new thermal imaging cameras and motion sensors adding extra layers of protection. I've added electromagnetic field detectors too, Jack explained, pointing to a new display showing colorful waves of energy across the property. If they try to use any kind of containment equipment on our spirit friend, we'll know about it. See these patterns? He indicated the gentle swirls of energy around the stables. That's our guardian's normal signature. Emma burst into the room, her face flushed with concern. You need to see this, she said, pulling up a web page on her tablet. I've been researching the Institute for Paranormal Research and Development. They've been involved in several other cases of supernatural phenomena, and the pattern is always the same. She showed them news articles about mysterious fires at ancient sacred sites, unexplained disappearances of local legends, and suspicious accidents at locations known for paranormal activity. In each case, the Institute had shown up with their offers of research collaboration shortly before the phenomena ceased. They don't just study these things, Emma continued, her voice tight with worry. They eliminate them, either by capturing them for their experiments or by destroying the conditions that allow them to exist. Marcus joined them, carrying a stack of legal documents. I've had our lawyers draw up every possible protection we can think of, he said, spreading the papers across the desk. The entire property is now under a conservation easement. We're also filing for historical landmark status based on the ranch's spiritual significance to local Native American tribes. Sarah nodded approvingly, but her attention was drawn to the security feeds. The horses had been acting differently since Morton's visit, gathering in unusual patterns and staying closer to the stables. Thundercloud, in particular, seemed to have appointed herself as a sentinel, watching the property boundaries with unusual intensity. They're preparing too, Sarah murmured, watching as Midnight Star positioned himself protectively near a group of younger horses. They know something's coming. That evening, their spirit guardian appeared earlier than usual again, its luminescent form more visible than they'd ever seen it. Instead of going about its usual care routine, it moved purposefully around the property's perimeter, its ethereal mane flowing with supernatural energy. Look at the EMF readings, Jack said, pointing to the monitoring equipment. They're off. The charts. It's like it's creating some kind of protective barrier. Emma studied the readings with professional interest. The energy patterns are similar to what's documented in ancient stories about spirit animals protecting sacred grounds. It's not just caring for the horses anymore, it's defending its territory. As night fell, Sarah made her rounds with a growing sense of unease. The evening air felt charged, like the atmosphere before a storm. At each stall, she checked and rechecked the new security measures they'd installed: reinforced locks, motion sensors, cameras with multiple backup systems. "We've got movement at the south fence," Jack's voice crackled through her radio. Sarah hurried to investigate, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. As she approached, she caught a glimpse of a figure quickly retreating into the shadows. "Someone was testing our responses," she reported back, her heart pounding. "They're watching us, learning our patterns." Back in the monitoring room, they gathered to review the footage. The figure had been careful to stay just at the edge of the camera's range, but their professional movements were telling. This was no curious tourist or amateur ghost hunter. "They'll make their move soon," Marcus said gravely. "Morton's type doesn't waste time once they've set their sights on something." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she remembered Morton's words about containing the phenomenon. "We need to warn Dr. Rodriguez and the other researchers," she decided. "They should know what kind of people are really behind the institute." As if responding to their concerns, their ethereal guardian appeared on the main stable camera. Its form seemed more solid than usual, its starlight mane rippling with energy as it moved between the stalls, checking on each horse. When it reached Thundercloud's stall, the mare pressed her nose against its shimmering form in what looked like a gesture of solidarity. "It's not just protecting the horses now," Emma observed softly. "It's protecting all of us. Everything we're trying to preserve here." They worked late into the night, setting up additional security measures and planning for various scenarios. Jack coordinated with local law enforcement, ensuring they understood the potential threat. Emma prepared documentation of all their legitimate research, creating a record that could be used to challenge any false claims the Institute might make. Sarah stood at the window, watching the spirit horse make its rounds, its gentle light casting shadows that seemed to dance across the stable walls. She couldn't help but wonder if their efforts to protect it might end up driving it away, if the very attention they'd brought to Willow Creek might destroy the miracle they'd discovered. But as she watched, the spirit paused in its rounds and turned toward her. For a moment, their eyes met across the distance, and Sarah felt a wave of certainty wash over her. This wasn't just about protecting a supernatural phenomenon. It was about preserving something sacred, something that had chosen them as much as they had chosen to protect it. As midnight approached, the teams settled into their monitoring positions, each person aware that they were standing guard over something precious and irreplaceable. The horses shifted quietly in their stalls, the spirit moved its endless rounds, and somewhere in the darkness, they knew their adversaries were watching, waiting, planning their move. The peace of Willow Creek Ranch had been shattered, but in its place had grown something stronger, a determination to protect the extraordinary, bond between the physical and spiritual worlds that had been entrusted to their care. The crisis struck on a moonless night, when the autumn wind howled through Willow Creek Ranch like a mournful warning. Sarah had been monitoring the security feeds with Jack when the first alarm triggered, a subtle disruption in the electromagnetic field at the property's edge. Within seconds, more alerts began flooding their screens. "Multiple breaches," Jack announced, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "They're coming in from 3 different directions. These readings, they're using some kind of energy-dampening equipment." Sarah grabbed her radio, already moving toward the door. "Marcus, Emma, they're making their move. Initiate Protocol Alpha." Her heart pounded as she rushed toward the stables where their most precious charges, and their ethereal guardian, would be most vulnerable. Through her earpiece, she could hear the chaos unfolding. Security cameras were going dark one by one, their sophisticated systems somehow being neutralized. The electromagnetic field monitors showed massive disturbances, as if something was trying to suppress all supernatural energy on the property. "Sarah, the horses are agitated. Emma's voice crackled through the radio. "Thunderclouds practically breaking down her stall door. Something's very wrong with the energy in here." As Sarah approached the main stable, she caught glimpses of figures moving in the darkness, professional, coordinated, dressed in black tactical gear. The Institute hadn't just sent researchers, they'd sent a trained extraction team. Suddenly, the night air seemed to freeze. The wind died completely, and an unnatural silence fell over the ranch. Sarah's flashlight beam caught a familiar shimmer. In the air, their guardian spirit had appeared, hours before its usual time, its luminescent form pulsing with an intensity they'd never seen before. "They're trying to trap it," Jack's urgent voice came through her earpiece. "These energy readings, they're creating some kind of containment field around the stable." Sarah burst through the stable doors just as all hell broke loose. The spirit horse was moving frantically between the stalls, its ethereal form flickering like a candle in a storm. Around it, strange devices mounted on tripods emitted a high-pitched whine, creating visible waves of energy that seemed to be closing in on the Guardian. "Stop!" Sarah shouted at the black-clad figures operating the equipment. "You don't know what you're doing!" But her voice was drowned out by the chaos that erupted. The horses, sensing the threat to their protector, began kicking at their stall doors with unprecedented force. Thundercloud's powerful strikes finally splintered her door, and she burst out, charging at the nearest equipment setup. Her action sparked a chain reaction as other horses followed suit, their panic and protective instincts creating a stampede within the confined space. Through the chaos, Sarah caught sight of Dr. Morton, standing in the shadows with a satisfied smile. "Contain the entity," he ordered into a radio. "Don't let it escape, no matter what." The spirit horse's form was becoming more erratic, its light flickering as the energy field closed in. But instead of trying to escape, it positioned itself between the horses and the Institute's team, its form expanding to create a barrier of pure light. "The energy readings are critical," Jack's voice warned in Sarah's ear. "Whatever they're doing, it's destabilizing everything." Emma appeared at Sarah's side, her face pale in the otherworldly light. "The horses, they're trying to protect it, but they're going to get hurt." The air itself seemed to be crackling with competing energies. The Institute's containment, field closing in, the spirit's protective power pushing back, and the raw emotional energy of the panicked horses creating a perfect storm of chaos. Midnight Star, despite his age and previous injury, had broken free and was now standing beside Thundercloud, both horses positioning themselves protectively near their flickering guardian. Other horses joined them, creating a living barrier between the spirit and its would-be captors. "Increase power to the containment field," Morton ordered, his voice rising with excitement. "We almost have it." But he had underestimated the bond between the horses and their guardian. As the EI containment field reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. Thundercloud reared up, her silhouette magnificent against the stable wall, and let out a neigh that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. The other horses joined in, their combined voices creating a sound that was both earthly and otherworldly. The spirit horse's light suddenly intensified, drawing strength from the horse's support. Its form began to pulse with a blinding radiance that overwhelmed the Institute's equipment. One by one, the containment devices began to spark and smoke. "The frequencies are matching!" Jack shouted through the radio. "The horses! They're somehow amplifying the spirit's energy!" Sarah watched in awe as the spirit's light merged with the horses, creating a devastating wave of pure energy that swept through the stable. The Institute's equipment exploded in showers of sparks, and their team members were thrown backward by an invisible force. In the aftermath of that pulse of power, as the dust settled and the light faded, Sarah could see Morton and his team scrambling to their feet, their expensive equipment destroyed, their careful plans in shambles. The spirit horse stood triumphant. Among its equine defenders, its form more solid and brilliant than ever before, no longer flickering or fading. Morton's face contorted with fury and disbelief. "This isn't over," he spat, signaling his team to retreat. "We'll be back with better equipment," stronger containment fields. No, Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying a strength that surprised even her. You won't, because now you've seen what you're really dealing with. This isn't just some phenomenon you can capture and study. This is a bond, a sacred trust, and it will always be stronger than your containment fields and your experiments. As if to emphasize her words, the spirit horse moved to stand beside her, its light steadying into a calm, powerful glow. The horses gathered around them, creating a united front of earthly and supernatural guardians. The message was clear. Willow Creek Ranch would not yield its mysteries to those who sought to exploit them. The dawn that followed the Institute's attack painted Willow Creek Ranch in surreal hues of pink and gold, the early morning light revealing the full extent of the previous night's chaos. Debris from destroyed equipment littered the stable floor. Scorch marks scarred the walls where energy pulses had struck, and the air still crackled with residual supernatural energy. Sarah stood in the stable aisle, surveying the damage while Emma conducted urgent health checks on each horse. Despite the intensity of the night's events, miraculously, none of the horses had been seriously injured. Their guardian's protective barrier had done its job, shielding them from the worst of the energy discharges. I still can't believe what I saw, Jack said, reviewing the footage that had survived the electromagnetic chaos. The way the horses and the spirit worked together. It was like they were communicating on some level we couldn't understand. Emma emerged from Thundercloud's stall, her medical kit in hand and wonder in her eyes. Their vital signs are actually stronger than before, she reported. It's as if the energy exchange with the spirit somehow enhanced their natural abilities. Thundercloud's previous hoof issues have completely vanished. Marcus arrived with Dr. Rodriguez, who had driven through the night after receiving their urgent call. The renowned researcher's eyes widened as she took in the scene, her scientific mind already processing the implications of what had happened. This is unprecedented, Dr. Rodriguez breathed, her handheld instruments registering the lingering energy signatures. The synchronization between biological and supernatural energies. It completely overwhelmed the Institute's containment technology. We need to document everything before the energy signatures fade. Sarah led them through the stable, recounting the events of the night. When they reached Midnight Star's stall, the elderly stallion greeted them with unprecedented vigor, his previously injured leg showing no sign of weakness. The spirit horse's healing influence, combined with the energy surge, had apparently accelerated his recovery beyond anyone's expectations. The Institute will try again, Marcus warned, his voice grave. They won't give up after one failure, especially now that they've seen what's really possible here. Sarah nodded, watching as Thundercloud paced her stall with nervous energy. But now we know what we're dealing with, and more importantly, we know what we're capable of. She turned to Dr. Rodriguez. We need your help. The Institute tries to paint these phenomena as dangerous, as things that need to be contained and controlled. We need to show the world the truth. Dr. Rodriguez was already typing rapid notes into her tablet. I'll contact my colleagues at other universities. We'll put together a comprehensive research team, ethical researchers, who understand the importance of preservation rather than exploitation. The data from last night alone could revolutionize our understanding of the relationship between spiritual and physical entities. Jack called them over to his laptop, where he had managed to salvage crucial footage from the night's events. Look at this, he said, playing a sequence that showed the moment the horses had united with their guardian. The video captured the incredible merger of natural and supernatural energies, the horses' protective circle, and the devastating pulse that had destroyed the Institute's equipment. We need to release this, Emma suggested. Not just to the scientific community, but to everyone. The world needs to see that this isn't something to be feared or controlled. It's something to be protected and respected. As they discussed their next steps, a familiar shimmer appeared in the air. Their guardian spirit materialized, its form somehow both more substantial and more ethereal than before. The horses immediately turned toward it, their ears forward, their postures relaxed despite the chaotic environment. The spirit moved through the stable, checking each horse just as it had done every night since they'd first discovered its presence. But now there was a new dimension to its interactions, a visible connection that showed just how deep the bond between guardian and charges really was. "Look how it's moving," Dr. Rodriguez observed, her instruments tracking the energy patterns. "It's not just caring for them anymore, it's strengthening them, teaching them." Sarah watched as Thundercloud followed the spirit's movements, mimicking its calm, purposeful energy. Other horses began to do the same, creating a harmonious flow of movement throughout the stable. It was as if the previous night's events had awakened something in them, a deeper awareness of their connection to their supernatural guardian. "We don't just need to protect them from the Institute," Sarah realized. "We need to protect this relationship, this bond. It's not just about preventing capture or exploitation. It's about preserving something sacred." Marcus put a hand on her shoulder, his expression determined. "Then, that's exactly what we'll do. We'll turn Willow Creek into more than just a ranch. It'll be a sanctuary, a place where this connection between worlds can be studied and understood, not feared, and controlled." As the morning progressed, more allies arrived, other researchers, local authorities who had witnessed the strange lights, and even some of the skeptics who had previously doubted their claims. The evidence was undeniable now, and support was growing. They worked tirelessly through the day, documenting everything, strengthening their security, and preparing for whatever the Institute might plan next. But there was a new confidence in their efforts, born from the knowledge that they weren't just protecting horses and a spirit. They were preserving a miracle that had chosen to reveal itself to the world through them. The next few days and Willow Creek Ranch brought a flurry of activity as news of the Institute's failed attempt spread through both scientific and spiritual communities. Dr. Rodriguez had activated her network of ethical researchers, and support began pouring in from unexpected places. Native American elders who had long spoken of spirit animals arrived to offer their wisdom, while technological experts came forward with advanced protection systems designed to work with supernatural energies rather than against them. Sarah stood at the entrance of the main stable, watching as a team of specialists installed a new type of security barrier, one that would amplify and protect spiritual energy rather than trying to contain it. The morning sun caught the subtle shimmer of the defensive field as it went live, creating a rainbow-like effect that seemed perfectly suited to their extraordinary situation. "The energy harmonics are perfect," Jack announced, monitoring the PI readings on his upgraded equipment. "It's actually strengthening our Guardian's natural frequency instead of fighting it." He pointed to a display showing waves of gentle, pulsing light that matched the spirit horse's own ethereal glow. Emma emerged from Thundercloud's stall, her face bright with excitement. "You won't believe what's happening with the horses," she said, gesturing for Sarah to follow her. Inside, Thundercloud stood absolutely still, her form surrounded by a faint, luminescent aura similar to their guardian's glow. "They're learning," Dr. Rodriguez observed from the stall door, her instruments recording every detail. "The spirit isn't just protecting them anymore. It's teaching them to channel some of its energy themselves. It's like watching evolution happen in real time." One by one, they visited each stall, finding similar phenomena. Midnight Star, the elderly stallion who had once struggled with his injured leg, now moved with the grace of a horse half his age, a subtle shimmer following his movements. Other horses displayed new awareness and abilities, each developing their own unique connection to the supernatural energy that permeated the ranch. Marcus joined them, carrying a stack of official-looking documents. "The preservation orders came through," he announced. "Willow Creek Ranch is now officially recognized as a supernatural wildlife sanctuary, the first of its kind. No one, not even the Institute, can legally interfere with what happens here." Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders, but she knew their work was just beginning. "What about the Institute's threats?" she asked, remembering Morton's ominous words as he'd retreated. "That's actually the most interesting part," Marcus replied with a slight smile. "After their equipment failure went public, Several of their own researchers defected. They're exposing the Institute's real agenda, all their failed attempts to weaponize supernatural phenomena, the damage they've caused to other sacred sites. Their credibility is crumbling. As if responding to the good news, their guardian, spirit materialized in the stable aisle, its form more magnificent than ever. The horses whinnied in greeting, their own subtle auras brightening in response to its presence. The spirit moved among them with purposeful grace, continuing its work of healing and teaching. "Look at this," Emma called out, reviewing her medical data. The horses' vital signs are synchronized with the spirit's energy pattern now. It's like they're becoming part of a larger organism, but without losing their individual personalities. Thundercloud demonstrated this perfectly by playfully tossing her mane, her movement creating ripples in the visible energy field around her. The spirit horse responded by touching its muzzle to hers, causing their auras to briefly merge in a spectacular display of light. "Dr. Rodriguez," Sarah began, turning to the researcher, "how do we share this with the world without turning it into a circus? People need to understand what's happening here, but we can't risk this becoming just another tourist attraction." The scientist considered this carefully. "We create a research and education center," she suggested. "Limited access, carefully screened visitors, focus on understanding and preserving rather than exploiting. We've already received offers of funding from several universities and conservation groups." Marcus nodded approvingly. "We can use the old North Barn for the research facility. Keep it separate from the main stables, protect the horses' routine. And our guardian seems to approve," Jack added, pointing to his readings. "The energy signatures are actually getting stronger since we started talking about this. It's like it understands what we're planning." Sarah watched as the spirit continued its rounds, its light seeming to grow brighter with each passing moment. The horses responded to its presence with a new confidence, their movements more graceful, their connection to each other, and their guardian more evident than ever. The transformation of Willow Creek Ranch was just beginning, but already they could see the possibilities unfolding. What had started as a mysterious midnight visitor had evolved into something far more profound. A bridge between worlds, a sanctuary where the miraculous could flourish under the protection of those who understood its true value. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh hay through the stable, and with it came a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. The Institute's attack, though traumatic, had only served to strengthen the bonds between the horses, their guardian, and the humans who had chosen to protect them. What had been a secret was now a sacred trust, and Willow Creek Ranch was becoming exactly what it was always meant to be, a place where the extraordinary could safely exist alongside the ordinary, where wisdom could be gained without exploitation, and where the mysterious bond between horses and their supernatural guardian could continue to evolve and flourish. As autumn gave way to winter at Willow Creek Ranch, the transformation of the property into a supernatural sanctuary continued. At a remarkable pace, the old North Barn had been renovated into a state-of-the-art research center, its modern equipment harmoniously blending with the ranch's rustic character. More importantly, the stable area had become a sacred space where the extraordinary partnership between horses and their ethereal guardian continued to evolve in ways that amazed even the most seasoned researchers. Sarah walked through the main stable one crisp morning, marveling at how different everything felt. The air itself seemed charged with gentle energy, visible in subtle waves of light that danced along the walls. Each horse's stall now emanated its own unique glow, a manifestation of the abilities they had developed under their guardian's tutelage. "The latest readings are extraordinary," Dr. Rodriguez said, falling into step beside Sarah. The scientist had become a permanent fixture. At the ranch, her initial skepticism transformed into passionate advocacy for their work. The horses aren't just channeling the spirit's energy anymore. They're generating their own. Look at Thundercloud. They paused at the mare's stall, where Thundercloud was demonstrating her newest ability. As they watched, she created a small sphere of luminescent energy, similar to their guardian's light, and used it to illuminate her water trough. The water began to shimmer with healing properties, a feat that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. She taught herself that, Emma added, joining them with her medical charts. Each horse is developing different abilities. Midnight Star has become particularly adept at healing energy, while some of the younger horses are showing talents for communication we never thought possible. The elderly stallion himself stood regally in his stall, his once injured leg now completely healed. Several times a day he would share his healing energy with other horses, his gentle nature making him a perfect teacher for the younger ones learning to manage their new abilities. Jack's voice crackled over their radio system, which had been specially modified to work within the supernatural energy field. "You should come to the research center," he called. "We're picking up some amazing activity on the new sensors." In the converted barn, screens displayed complex energy patterns that mapped the interaction between the physical and supernatural worlds. The most prominent display showed their guardian spirit moving through its normal rounds, but now they could see layers of energy they'd never detected before. "It's like watching two worlds overlap," Jack explained, adjusting the displays. "The horses are actually helping to strengthen the barrier between dimensions, making it easier for their guardian to manifest while keeping unwanted entities out." Marcus studied the patterns with intense interest. "The Native American elders who visited last week spoke about this," he said. "They called it harmonious resonance, when the physical and spiritual worlds find their natural balance." Through the windows, they could see small groups of approved visitors being guided through the public areas of the ranch. Each guest had been carefully screened and prepared for what they might witness, though the truly extraordinary activities were kept private within the sanctuary's inner areas. "The educational program is exceeding all expectations," Emma reported, pulling up visitor feedback on her tablet. "People leave here with a completely new understanding of the relationship between humans, animals, and the supernatural world. Several universities have requested to establish permanent research partnerships." Sarah watched as their guardian spirit materialized in the paddock where Thundercloud and several other horses were waiting. The spirit's form was stronger than ever, its light more concentrated and purposeful. They had learned that the more they worked to protect and understand it, the more it was able to manifest and interact with the physical world. "The energy field is adapting," Dr. Rodriguez noted, checking her instruments. "It's not just about protection anymore. It's creating an environment where both worlds can safely intersect. This could revolutionize our understanding of supernatural phenomena." The spirit began what looked like a teaching session, demonstrating new ways of channeling energy. The horses gathered around, their own auras brightening as they learned. It was beautiful to watch, this dance between the physical and supernatural, each movement precise and purposeful. "We've had inquiries from other ranches and wildlife preserves," Marcus mentioned, showing Sarah a folder of correspondence. "They've reported similar phenomena, different types of spirit guardians, different manifestations. It's like what happened here has sparked something larger." Sarah smiled, remembering how it had all started with mysterious midnight visits and unexplained bar. "Maybe that was the purpose all along," she mused. "Not just to protect these horses, but to show us what's possible when we work with these forces instead of trying to control them." The afternoon light caught the ethereal barrier that surrounded the property, creating rainbow-like refractions that seemed to dance in the air. Within this protective dome, horses moved with newfound grace, their enhanced abilities now a natural part of their daily lives. The spirit guardian, no longer bound to midnight visits, could appear whenever needed, its presence a constant reminder of the bridge they had built between worlds. As they watched, Thundercloud demonstrated another new ability, creating patterns of light that communicated complex emotions and ideas. Other horses joined in, adding their own energy to the display until the paddock was filled with a spectacular light show that merged the best of both worlds, the natural grace of the horses with the supernatural beauty of their guardian's influence. "We're just beginning to understand what's possible here," Dr. Rodriguez said softly, her scientific mind still struggling to categorize everything they were witnessing. Every day brings new discoveries, new abilities, new ways of connecting. Sarah nodded, feeling profound gratitude for how far they'd come. What had started as a mystery had become a mission, and now that mission was expanding in ways they had never imagined. Willow Creek Ranch had become more than a sanctuary. It was a beacon of hope, showing the world that the extraordinary could exist peacefully alongside the ordinary, protected and understood, rather than feared and controlled. Winter settled over Willow Creek Ranch, bringing with it a new phase in the sanctuary's evolution. The implementation of their comprehensive protection system had transformed the property into a harmonious blend of physical and supernatural security. Ancient wisdom merged with modern technology, creating layers of defense that worked with, rather than against, the mystical energies that now defined the ranch. Sarah stood at the newly established boundary line, where crystalline pillars had been installed at regular intervals. These weren't ordinary security markers. Each crystal had been carefully selected and positioned according to both scientific principles and spiritual guidance. As she watched, the morning sun caught the crystals, sending rainbow-colored energy pulses through the protective barrier that now encircled the property. "The integration is complete," Jack announced, reviewing data on his specialized tablet. The screen displayed multiple layers of information, physical security feeds overlaid with supernatural energy readings. "The crystals are amplifying our Guardian's natural protective field while filtering out any attempting to disrupt it. Even the Institute's most advanced technology couldn't penetrate this." Emma approached, leading Thundercloud on a loose rein. The mare's coat seemed to shimmer with an inner light, her movements more graceful than ever. "Watch this," Emma said with a smile. Thundercloud stepped forward and touched her nose to one of the crystal pillars. Immediately, the entire barrier flickered with increased luminescence, responding to her energy. "They're becoming true partners in protecting this place," Dr. Rodriguez observed, her instruments recording the interaction. "Each horse has developed its own way of contributing to the sanctuary's defense. It's like they're creating a living security system." The truth of her words was evident throughout the property. Midnight Star had taken to patrolling the perimeter each morning, his healing energy strengthening weak points in the barrier. Younger horses worked in pairs, practicing their new abilities under the spirit's guidance, learning to channel and direct the supernatural energy that now flowed freely through the ranch. Inside the main stable, Sarah supervised the installation of the final elements of their new protection system. Crystal amplifiers had been seamlessly integrated into each stall, allowing the horses to maintain their energy levels while providing additional security. The floor had been inscribed with ancient symbols, their patterns creating channels for the natural flow of power. "The elders say this is sacred geometry," Marcus explained, pointing to the intricate designs. "It helps balance. The energies keeps them from becoming too concentrated in any one area." He consulted a leather-bound book given to them by one of the Native American advisors who had helped design the new systems. Their guardian spirit materialized in the center of the stable, its form now visible throughout the day thanks to the enhanced energy field. It moved with purpose, inspecting each new installation, its approval evident in the strengthening of the ambient light that surrounded it. "The readings are extraordinary," Jack called from his monitoring station. "The spirit's energy signature is perfectly synchronized with our new systems. It's like they were made for each other." Sarah watched as Thundercloud demonstrated another new ability they had discovered. The mare created a small sphere of protective energy, similar to their guardians, and passed it to a younger horse who had been struggling to manifest its own power. The younger horse absorbed the energy, its eyes brightening with understanding. "They're teaching each other now," Emma noted, making entries in her research journal. "It's not just the spirit teaching them anymore. They're developing their own methods of passing on knowledge." The afternoon brought a scheduled visit from approved researchers, each one carefully vetted and prepared for what they would witness. As the small group toured the public areas, their amazement was evident. Even in these controlled spaces, the merger of supernatural and natural was impossible to miss. "The energy readings here are unlike anything we've ever seen," one physicist commented, his specialized equipment displaying complex patterns of light and energy. "It's as if you've created a perfect ecosystem where physical and supernatural forces exist in complete harmony." Sarah led them to the observation area, where they could safely watch the horses and their guardian interact. "What you're seeing is just the surface," she explained. "The real miracle is how all of this works together. The horses, the spirit, the land itself. Everything here has become part of a larger whole." As if to demonstrate her point, their guardian spirit began a training session with several horses in the main paddock. Waves of luminescent energy flowed between them, creating patterns that seemed to dance in the winter air. Each horse contributed its own unique energy signature, building a spectacular display of cooperation between the physical and supernatural realms. "We're documenting everything," Dr. Rodriguez assured the visiting researchers. "But some things have to be experienced to be truly understood. This isn't just about protecting these horses anymore. It's about preserving a sacred connection that could change our understanding of reality itself." The day continued with more installations and adjustments, each one carefully designed to enhance rather than restrict the supernatural activities that had become normal at Willow Creek Ranch. The horses moved through their routines with newfound confidence, their abilities growing stronger as they worked with the new systems. As evening approached, Sarah stood with Marcus and Emma, watching the sunset paint the crystal barrier with stunning colors. Their guardian spirit appeared beside them, its form strong and steady in the gathering dusk. The horses gathered nearby, their own subtle glows adding to the ethereal beauty of the scene. "We've created something unique here," Marcus said softly, gesturing to the harmonious blend of technology and magic that surrounded them. Something that could show the world a different way of thinking about the relationship between the physical and spiritual. Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of his words in the peaceful energy that now permeated every corner of the ranch. What had started with mysterious midnight visits had evolved into a model for how humanity could work with, rather than against, the supernatural forces that shared their world. The influence of Willow Creek Ranch began to spread far beyond its crystalline barriers, touching lives and changing perspectives across the globe. What had started as a mysterious phenomenon in a small Montana ranch had sparked a worldwide conversation about the relationship between the physical and spiritual worlds. The sanctuary had become a beacon of hope, showing how humanity could coexist with and nurture supernatural forces rather than fear or try to control them. Sarah sat in the newly established visitor center, reviewing the latest batch of correspondence that had flooded their inbox. Letters and emails had arrived from every corner of the world, other ranches reporting similar phenomena, indigenous elders offering their wisdom, and scientists eager to understand what they had achieved. "Look at this," she called to Emma, who was preparing for the day's educational session. "A horse sanctuary in Ireland claims they've started seeing their own spirit guardian. They've sent video footage that looks remarkably similar to our early recordings." Emma joined her, tablet in hand. "We've received 3 more reports like that this week alone. It's like what happened here has awakened something dormant in other places." She pulled up a map showing points of light where similar phenomena had been reported. "The pattern is fascinating. They're all appearing at locations with deep historical connections to horses." Dr. Rodriguez entered the center, excitement evident in her usually composed demeanor. "The preliminary results from our global study are in," she announced, spreading documents across the table. "The energy signature we first recorded here at Willow Creek is appearing at sites worldwide. It's like our guardian showed others of its kind that it was safe to reveal themselves." Through the window, they could see Thundercloud working with a group of visiting horses. The mare had become a teacher in her own right, helping other horses awaken their latent abilities. Her gentle methods and patient guidance had proven remarkably effective, and ranches from across the country now sent their horses for training. at Willow Creek. "Watch this," Jack called from his monitoring station. The screens showed a remarkable scene unfolding in the main paddock. Thundercloud was demonstrating a new technique, creating patterns of light that seemed to tell a story. The visiting horses watched intently, their own auras beginning to flicker in response. "They're learning faster now," Marcus observed, joining them at the windows. "It's like each new group brings something unique to the process. The abilities are evolving, becoming more refined." He shared a folder of recent documentation showing how the horses' supernatural capabilities had developed over time. The afternoon brought a scheduled video conference with representatives from similar sanctuaries that had begun appearing worldwide. Sarah watched as screens lit up with faces from different continents, each sharing their own experiences with spirit guardians and awakening horses. "The patterns are consistent," a researcher from Japan reported, sharing footage of luminescent horses practicing abilities similar to those first seen at Willow Creek. "But each location seems to develop its own unique manifestation of the phenomenon. Our guardian takes the form of ancient samurai horses from Japanese mythology. A sanctuary owner from Argentina showed videos of their horses working with a spirit that resembled the legendary Criollo steeds of South American folklore. They're teaching us about our own history," she explained, helping us reconnect with ancient wisdom we had forgotten. The impact extended beyond just horse sanctuaries. Universities had begun establishing new departments dedicated to studying the intersection of supernatural and natural phenomena. The Institute for Paranormal Research and Development, thoroughly discredited after their failed attack on Willow Creek, had been replaced by organizations focused on understanding and preserving these mysterious connections rather than trying to control them. "We're seeing changes in legislation too," Marcus added, showing them new regulations being adopted worldwide. Countries are beginning to recognize and protect supernatural sanctuaries as essential parts of their cultural and natural heritage. Outside, their guardian spirit appeared, moving among the horses with its characteristic grace. Its presence had grown stronger over time, its ability to manifest and interact with the physical world enhanced by the global awakening it had helped initiate. Other spirits now occasionally visited Willow Creek, creating spectacular displays of supernatural light that drew observers from around the world. Sarah made her way to the main stable, where a film crew was carefully documenting the day-to-day activities of the sanctuary. Unlike the sensational coverage they had initially received, this was part of a serious documentary series exploring the emergence of supernatural phenomena worldwide. "The most remarkable thing," she explained to the cameraman as they watched Thundercloud create intricate patterns of light, "is how natural it all feels now. What seemed impossible a few months ago has become part of our daily reality. But we never take it for granted. Each day brings new wonders, new discoveries." Emma joined them, leading a group of veterinary students who had come to study the enhanced healing abilities the horses had developed. "The medical implications are extraordinary," she explained, showing them how Midnight Star used his energy to accelerate healing in other horses. "We're learning things about animal health and recovery that we never imagined possible." As the day progressed, the sanctuary hummed with activity. Researchers collected data, visitors watched in awe from designated observation areas, and the horses continued their remarkable journey of growth and discovery. The spirit guardian moved among them all, its presence a constant reminder of the bridge they had built between worlds. "We're just beginning to understand the true impact of what's happening here," Dr. Rodriguez reflected as they gathered for the evening review session. "This isn't just about horses anymore. It's about rediscovering humanity's connection to the supernatural, about learning to work with forces we once feared or dismissed." The sun set over Willow Creek Ranch, painting the crystalline barrier with spectacular colors. The horses gathered in the paddocks, their subtle glows creating a landscape of living light. Their guardian spirit stood among them, its form both ancient and timeless, a symbol of the extraordinary change it had helped bring into the world. 1 year after the extraordinary events that had transformed Willow Creek Ranch, Sarah stood in the pre-dawn light, watching as their guardian spirit moved among the horses with fluid grace. The scene before her captured everything they had achieved. Horses with subtle auras practicing their abilities, crystal barriers shimmering with protective energy, and researchers quietly documenting the harmonious interaction between the physical and supernatural worlds. Thundercloud approached, her coat gleaming with an inner light that had become her signature. The mare had grown into her role as a teacher, helping other horses discover their latent abilities while strengthening her own connection to the supernatural. She pressed her nose gently against Sarah's shoulder, sharing a small pulse of comforting energy, a gesture that still amazed Sarah despite its familiarity. "Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come," Emma said, joining them with her morning coffee. Her research journals, now published in leading scientific publications, had helped establish the study of supernatural equine phenomena as a legitimate field. "Remember when we thought we had a security breach? When all we could see were open doors and mysterious care?" Sarah smiled, watching as their guardian spirit demonstrated a new energy pattern to a group of young horses. Its form had grown even more magnificent over time, its light more concentrated and purposeful. What had started as midnight visits had evolved into a constant presence, a bridge between worlds that had changed their understanding of what was possible. Dr. Rodriguez sent over the latest global report, Jack called from the research center's entrance. "We're up to 50 confirmed spirit sanctuaries worldwide, each one unique, but all connected to what started here." He showed them a digital map dotted with points of light, each representing a location where the supernatural and natural worlds had found harmony. Marcus emerged from his office, where he had been on a video call with government officials discussing new protective legislation for supernatural sites. "The United Nations is creating a special designation," he announced. "Protected supernatural heritage sites. Willow Creek will be among the first to receive the status." The morning sun crested the mountains, sending rays of light through the crystalline barrier that surrounded the property. The effect was spectacular, rainbow refractions dancing through the air, merging with the natural auras of the horses and their guardian. It was a daily reminder of how beauty could emerge from the union of physical and supernatural forces. "You know what amazes me most?" Sarah said, watching as Midnight Star used his healing energy to help a visiting horse recover from an old injury. "It's not just the extraordinary things we see here every day. It's how this has changed people's hearts. How it's helping us remember something we'd forgotten." She was right. The impact of Willow Creek Ranch had extended far beyond the supernatural phenomena they studied. It had sparked a global conversation about humanity's relationship with the mysterious forces that shared their world. People were rediscovering ancient wisdom, learning to work with rather than against the supernatural, and finding new ways to protect and preserve these sacred connections. Their guardian spirit approached the group, its form shimmering with increasing solidity in the morning light. Over the past year, they had learned to read its moods and intentions, to understand the subtle ways it communicated. Now it seemed to radiate satisfaction, as if pleased with how its decision to reveal itself had transformed not just Willow Creek, but the world's understanding of what was possible. "Look," Emma whispered, pointing to where Thundercloud was working with a newly arrived horse. The mare created a gentle sphere of light, offering it to her nervous companion. As they watched, the new horse's own aura began to flicker and grow, awakening to its innate connection with the supernatural. "Every time I see this, it reminds me why we do what we do." The sanctuary had become more than just a place of study and protection. It was a beacon of hope, showing how the extraordinary could exist alongside the ordinary, how ancient mysteries could be honored while embracing new understanding. The failed attempt by the Institute to capture and control these forces had only served to highlight the importance of their approach, one based on respect, protection, and harmony. Dr. Rodriguez joined them, her instruments recording the morning's energy patterns, What we're documenting here goes beyond science, she reflected. We're witnessing the reunion of worlds that should never have been separated. Each day brings new discoveries, new understandings of these ancient connections. As the morning progressed, visitors began arriving. Researchers, students, and carefully screened observers, all drawn by the miracle that had revealed itself at Willow Creek Ranch. They watched in wonder as horses and spirit worked together, creating displays of supernatural beauty that defied conventional explanation. We're not just protecting these horses and their guardian, Sarah said, addressing a group of students who would go on to work at other sanctuaries. We're protecting a sacred trust. Every time a spirit reveals itself, every time a horse awakens to these abilities, we're being given a chance to reconnect with something profound and beautiful. The guardian spirit moved through the stable aisle, its light touching each horse, in turn, strengthening their bonds and abilities. The horses responded with gentle nickers and pulses of their own energy, creating a symphony of light and sound that demonstrated the deep connection they shared. As the day drew to a close, Sarah stood with her team watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. The crystal barrier caught the light, sending rainbow cascades across the property. Horses grazed peacefully in the paddocks, their subtle auras creating pools of luminescence in the gathering dusk. If you had told me a year ago that we'd be here, Marcus mused, watching horses work with spirit guardians, helping protect supernatural sanctuaries around the world, I would have thought it was impossible. Maybe that's the real miracle, Emma added softly. Not just what we're seeing, but how it's helping us believe in impossible things again. How it's teaching us to trust in forces we can't fully understand. Their guardian spirit materialized one final time, its form magnificent against the darkening sky. As they watched, it created a display of light that seemed to tell the story of their journey. From mystery to understanding, from fear to acceptance, from isolation to connection. The message was clear. In a world that often seemed determined to explain away its mysteries, Willow Creek Ranch stood as a testament to the extraordinary possibilities that emerged when humanity chose to protect and nurture the supernatural, rather than fear or control it. Every horse that discovered its abilities, every spirit that revealed itself, every sanctuary that emerged carried this truth forward, that the most profound miracles happened when we opened our hearts to the mysterious forces that had always existed alongside us, waiting for us to remember our connection to them. If this story touched your heart, please share it with others who might need a reminder that there's more to our world than what we can easily explain. Sometimes the most beautiful truths reveal themselves in the quiet moments between dusk and dawn, in the gentle light of a guardian spirit, and in the wise eyes of horses who have remembered their connection to ancient mysteries.